Dumelang ka lapeng. Welcome to Come Alive with Mpho Mogotsi, the show that inspires you to live your best life. I'm your host, Mpho Mogotsi. I'm a life coach and philanthropist. Today's episode, we are talking autism. With me today, I have my beautiful guest, Lucia, who is an autism mom. Welcome, Lucia. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Mpho. My name is Lucia Mphahlele. I'm a HR boss by profession. I'm an ADHD and autism mom. I've actually founded a foundation called Mphahlele Autism Foundation, and I advocate for autism.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your boy who is autistic. When did you find out that he is actually autistic?
I'm a mom of 3. I already had 2 babies, with Will being my last. Will is my non-speaking autistic boy.
Yeah.
So how I found out is, you know, as a mom, there are social cues that you would already be aware of.
Yeah.
There are certain milestones, developmental milestones that he was just not reaching. And then that propelled me to going to Google. You know, we all self-diagnose with
Absolutely.
Google. And then searching through all his signs, you know, I then discovered that he has something that is called autism. Now, autism is very different because it's a spectrum. It's a very lengthy spectrum. It's called autism spectrum disorder because every single person who's on the spectrum is different from the very next one.
Yeah.
They are all their own individuals. Their behavioral patterns are all different. But because autism can be genetic and biological, we already had it in the family, and I knew quite early on that it definitely is, even before we could get diagnosis.
So how did that now change your world? And especially like you're saying, you already had 2 kids, and now discovering that the 3rd one is autistic. How did the dynamic of the family also change because of this new diagnosis?
You can never run away from it. Once you have a child with special needs, somehow they end up being the center of the entire family. Even with his siblings, everybody has taken over a role of mothering and fathering. Even the older siblings are very overly protective of him. As a family, I've taught my children, and I come from a background where we easily accept situations for exactly what they are. We embrace things easily. The difficult thing now that I struggled with was society. I'm an African woman. I grew up in the villages. I've only ever been exposed to the city when I came to Gauteng to come and further my studies after matric. It was very difficult. As Africa, we are still very far behind when it comes to disability. People would be calling your child a retard. People, unashamedly so, in front of your face, people will tell you that you are bewitched. There must be something wrong in your bloodline. It's ancestors. People are not happy with you. That type of a situation. So I find that was the most difficult thing that for me to adjust to. But yeah, I mean, you have to conquer. You have to accept, because acceptance is what would help you thrive.
Absolutely. And I can just imagine, because most often than not, when you actually have a child like that, batho ba tla ba re o loilwe or o moloi, you know, they make all these connotations around it, and it makes it so difficult, especially for you and your child, because now you didn't choose this and it came to you, and yet you're still having to deal with your own emotion. And not only that, now you've got society pressure coming in as well.
Yes.
So for someone who is a mom looking at you now and saying, Lucia, I know exactly what you are talking about. I've experienced the same kind of trauma in my society. What advice would you give to that mother?
Advice that I would give to any autism mom or a mom who's mothering disability of any kind. Advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. For as long as we open our mouths and speak about it and create awareness, then people are ignorant, for lack of a better word, and people frown upon what they do not know or do not understand. We have to get to a point where, as Africa, as Africans, we thoroughly understand that the World Health Organization says 1 in every 100 children as of today has autism. And that is not even the correct number. It's not the correct figures, because low-earning families never get a diagnosis. They just sit with the child at home, never expose them to anything, and It's never autism if a neurodevelopmental pediatrician has never diagnosed it autism. So it's quite bigger than what it actually is. So I say, forget the naysayers. Do your part. God has entrusted you with this for a particular purpose. Find peace in it. Find joy in it. Find strength in it. It is not easy. It's very difficult. It gets real. It really gets real. But do not be that mom. Find strength in other mothers around you. There are organizations now that are out there. We are mothers, we are women, we are parents, holding each other's hand, and so that we are able to assist each other, walk hand in hand nicely and maneuver through this, because nobody's an expert. Even the specialists, even the doctors who diagnose autism will tell you that nobody's 100% a specialist in the fact that every single one of them is different.
So I'm getting the sense that obviously, you know, this journey is not exactly an easy journey. So how is your support system, and would you say it's so important that you have a support system if you're going through, you know, a diagnosis of autism or any other for that matter?
Yes, I would say myself, I've got a great support system, but it hasn't always been like that. In the beginning, I find that with every parent who's going through this, that is not always the case.
Yeah.
Because you'll find even your family, your parents, being in denial and refusing the diagnosis. You do not need that at that particular moment. Then it strains relationships. But what the best advice I can give you is you make sure that when you accept, you open up. I know and understand that the easiest instinct that you'd have, you would want to throw yourself on your bed, cover underneath your blanket, and hide from the entire world. But unfortunately, as a mom or as a parent, as a mom, I love using the word that you have to mom up.
Yeah.
There is no time to feel sorry for yourself. You have to come headstrong and face it. When you face it, you educate everybody around you. When you are hiding and you are crying yourself to sleep through life, everybody's going to avoid you. People avoid you because then they do not know what to do with you. You are too miserable. People don't want to be around you. Not that they don't love you, because they just don't know how to get you out of that hole. Find your support system. Gravitate towards that which you believe in. Do you believe in therapy? You need to see a therapist. Are you a Christian? You need to speak to your pastor. There has to be a support system. You have to reach a point where you accept your fate. Once you accept your fate, it makes it easier for the people, the village around you, to come and just second you around and cocoon you and assist you.
Absolutely. So you've heard it from the horse's mouth. A mother with an autistic child, and she's saying support system is very key. Before the break, we had an autistic mom share her experience about autism. And right now with me, I've got yet another guest who's going to be talking to us regarding autism from a different angle, professional angle. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Mpho Mogotsi. I'm a speech therapist and audiologist. I'm also a founder of an organization called Mothers of Children with Autism.
Absolutely incredible to meet you, Mpho. And so what would you say entails what you do as a professional on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, basically my work as a speech therapist is to do assessments, which means I assess individuals living with autism as well as individuals with speech impairment. So usually children that have speech impairment, they are usually sent, or language delays, they would be sent to me for an assessment. And this is where we normally pick up that children have autism, because speech delays or language delay is usually the problem that we normally pick up with individuals living with autism.
Okay, so speech delays. So if I am sitting at home and I'm thinking my child should be doing certain things at the age that he's at and he's not, what are the first steps that I need to be taking to just ensure that we're not dealing with autism, or we're dealing maybe with something completely different?
Okay, firstly, with regards to child's development, within the ages of 1 year, the child should be able to produce some words.
Yeah.
Or should be able to imitate words. By the age of 2, they should be able to put up 2 words maybe together. And then if you see that there is a problem, and they must also have like eye contact, they should also be able to imitate, you know. They should even be able to do things like gestures.
Yeah.
Like when you say bye, the child should be able to do, but they must show a bit of social interaction, because that is how we normally pick up that children are developing well, through the way they play. A child, when they play, they must be playing constructively or functionally. Let's say you've got a cup, you know, your toys where there's cups or there's cars. The child should be able to move the car and show that he's moving the car, and the car is used for moving, or a cup is for drinking. And you can see if it's functional by the way the child plays with the toy. But a child who is autistic might have a tendency to line up toys and not play with them in a much more functional way. And a child living with autism has also difficulties with social interaction. They may like to prefer to play in isolation. Let's say you've got kids in your house. A child living with autism might be the one who chooses to go and play on the other side by him or herself. And that's when you see that they don't like to be around other people. And they also have what is called hypersensitivity to loud sound, or hypersensitivity, where you go with the child to the mall and they have a tendency to actually cover the ears. And this is because they cannot stand the sound where they are. Even this particular light that is in the room, it can be a little bit too much for them. So they've got what is called difficulties with their sensory regulation, basically. And their senses are such that they've got difficulties with interpreting some of the things, like your textures in terms of taste. They may struggle with taste and find that, and may be prone to eat food of the same texture and of the, like maybe something that is a little bit more bland, and they may struggle to eat anything that's got chilies and all that. And they also have a tendency to not like to wear certain clothing in terms of the texture, because it doesn't feel right on the skin, or may like to walk barefooted. They may not prefer to wear shoes. So it's quite a very complex condition, in that sense that it involves the child's whole development, you know. Yeah, so that's autism in a nutshell.
In a
basically.
nutshell.
Yes.
So at what age are most kids diagnosed with autism?
Usually people will say around 2 to 3 years, because that is the time where obviously your speech and language develops and the child is able to speak in a sentence within the age of 3. But I'd say to be safe, by 2 years, if you suspect that there are delays with regards to language development and the many other things that, and also the sensory, the fine motor coordination. Children living with autism may struggle even to feed themselves, because their fine motor coordination is not so great, in that sense that they may struggle, yes, to hold a cup, or even to put on their shoes or tie their shoelaces. So they may appear to be a little bit clumsy, yes, and they've got something called motor apraxia.
Okay,
So,
what is that?
Motor apraxia or speech apraxia, that's
Yes.
why they struggle with speech. Because
Okay.
remember, for you to be able to speak, there's a certain part in the brain that tells your mouth where the tongue needs to be and all that. So there's that motor planning problem that affects, so meaning that the brain is not communicating well with the senses or with the organs. That the child doesn't even know that for me to be able to hold this kettle, I need to start open my hand and be able, so that doesn't, it's a struggle with them.
So the coordination is not there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if a mother suspects that their child may be autistic, and they reach out to you to say, I need you to check on my child and see if, you know, what I'm suspecting is true, what do you take them through? What do you take the child through? What do you take the mother through?
Okay, because I'm a speech and language therapist, but
Yeah.
I also did a course where I can assess autism, but I need to be working within a multidisciplinary setup. So I cannot diagnose without the presence of a neurodevelopmental pediatrician or a psychiatrist as well. So neurodevelopmental pediatrician should be there, and a psychiatrist, because they are the ones that qualified to do the diagnosis. But most of the time you find that individuals will start with me first, because that's where most people pick up.
So you're the first point of
contact because of the speech and language impairment.
So then you will then refer them to the
neuro. And then the neuro will diagnose and will bring the client back to me. Then as a speech therapist, then I start to say, okay, how can we intervene? Then we start to do speech and language therapy. But again, we should also understand that not all the children living with autism have speech problems. So they may have some delays, and they may still be able to speak. And there are those that are non-speaking. We used to call it non-verbal.
Yeah.
There are those that are non-speaking, meaning that they are not able to put, to say sentences.
Yes.
So in that sense, those ones, we also work with them and teach them how to communicate with devices, for instance. Now there's iPads that can be used to communicate, and pictures. You can also use pictures to communicate with a child living with autism.
That's incredible. So you've heard it from a speech therapist who knows how to diagnose an autistic child. And right now with me, I've got Zandi, who is also an autistic mom. She's going to be sharing with us her experience. And of course, we are still at Matt Black in Bunikawe. Welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Zandi Letlogova. I'm from Soweto. I'm a mom to a 13-year-old autistic boy.
Absolutely incredible, Zandi. Thank you so much for coming through. So Zandi, tell us a little bit about you. Is it a girl or a boy?
A boy.
A boy. How old is he now?
He's 13.
13. Wow. When did you find out that he was actually autistic?
He was diagnosed when he was 4.
4 years old.
But we found out when he was 2.5 that he could be autistic. So it was difficult to get a diagnosis because autistic kids don't usually get sick. So I couldn't take him to a clinic and say I want him diagnosed because diagnoses are only made in hospitals by neurologists. So it took us longer to get a diagnosis.
So in that period from 2 to 4, when you were not necessarily 100% sure that he was autistic, tell us about your experience in that period.
During that time, we had to Google about autism. So we were taking what we saw that was linked to him, and then we'd use that information as a guideline at the beginning of our journey.
So you used Google as your doctor, in other words?
We used Google because there was a time when he used to break glasses. So we found out that the sound of a glass, they're not the same. So as glasses have shapes and sizes, they don't sound the same when they fall. So I think he liked the sound. So because today he'll break a tumbler, tomorrow is another glass. Then we had to pack away everything that was glassware in the house.
Oh, wow. And how was your relationship in the household in that period, especially before the proper diagnosis?
My mom had an idea, but I think she had forgotten the name. But she used to recall about one journalist who had an autistic daughter, and then the girl was at some point lost. And then they were looking for the child at night, calling out the name of the child. But the child couldn't speak.
Yeah.
So the guy ended up saying, it's of no use calling her out because wherever she is, she won't respond.
Yeah.
So even if they were calling her, but the child was later found at the park sitting.
Oh, man.
So she would relate to that story that Junior behaves more like a journalist. Because when you call him, sometimes he would respond, sometimes he would just keep quiet. Everybody knows I'm not speaking. So.
Oh, wow.
But he sang.
He sang?
Yeah, he hummed.
Oh, that's amazing.
He hummed Burning Spear songs. He knew almost the whole album.
Oh, that's incredible. Would you say maybe that was like very soothing for him, especially considering that he is autistic?
His father used to play that music, so I think that's the music he knew. So when he's doing things, then he would hum those songs. Even if the music is playing, he would hum.
Okay. And let us know about your experience as a mom. How was that for you specifically after finding out that your child is now really autistic?
It was hard, but because we had that unprofessionalized journey, you know, because we were referring to Google most of the time, when he was diagnosed, it was hard. But I was given the parental classes by
that's
when he was still
amazing.
at speech therapy.
Okay.
There were parental classes that I took
Okay.
on how to take care of the child. So I think that made the journey easier. And I don't know whether they're still offering that.
Okay. So would you say it helped you? Did you go alone? Did you take your husband, your mom, everyone in the family to this
I used to
parental?
go with my sister because she was the one who's helping me with the child.
Okay.
So she also took those classes.
Oh, amazing. And in terms of your community specifically, how well do they receive him and how well do they interact with him?
They're fine when I'm around, but when I'm not there, like I'll be hearing stories that so-and-so treated the child this way, so-and-so did this, you see. But when I'm around, they treat him well.
Oh, okay.
So he's safer when I'm
When
there,
you're
but
around.
when I'm not there, then
Okay, so what
that's
are some of the things that the community members do to him when you're not around?
they slap him around because he breaks windows. But yeah, he's throwing a lot of stones. I think it's because kids don't understand him. So he would go past your house, you throw a stone today. 3 months later, he remembers because you're wearing the same jersey that you were wearing, and then he will throw a stone. But your incident was not seen. So they'll be seeing what Junior is doing, but they don't know what you did before Junior did that.
Oh, wow. So they have a very good memory then, in other words.
Yes, he has a very good memory. If you had him wearing like this, tomorrow you have a white t-shirt, no, he loves you very much. But if you were to repeat that dress, then all hell break loose. He will remember like it just happened now.
Okay. So you're saying Junior is now a teenager, 13 years old.
Yes.
So how has his teen been like?
I don't think he has children into being a teen as yet, but by body growth he is a teen. He's now growing pubic hair and all, but his behavior is still like of an 8-year, 9-year-old child. So he's more far behind for his age.
Okay. And does he go to school? Does he go to a special school for that matter?
He's at Johannesburg School of Autism.
Okay. And he's been there since he was diagnosed?
He's been there since 2015. He started school there.
Okay. And in terms of the schooling especially, because I think that's the part that most people don't really know, what do they learn in an autistic school like that?
The kids are placed in classes according to the span that they're in. So they group them according to what they can do. So they can't put your child in a class where they're supposed to write if you can't hold a pencil. So they put them in classes according to how their brain is working.
Okay. So depending, like if he's 13 years old, like you're saying now, if he still doesn't speak, he will be in a class where they are still teaching him how to speak. Only then when he starts to talk will he graduate from that. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, Junior is in middle phase.
Yeah.
He's moving classes per age.
Okay.
But then the class that he's in is more like a grade 1 class because he's still studying to write. They're still coloring. So he's still doing numbers and ABCs and picture coloring.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for coming through and sharing your experience with us, and especially opening up your heart and soul so that we can learn from people like you.
Thank you for having me.
You've heard it from the mother, the two mothers that were here, as well as the specialist who has been here. Autism is real. Autism needs special care. We as society need to be in a position where we understand and can hold these women and these men hand and support them while they go through this experience. So I'm calling out to every single one of us, whether you have an autistic child or you happen to be a neighbor, be loving, be caring, most importantly, be supportive, because I'm hearing that the mothers need more support because they are already in a very difficult situation.